Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are going to discuss the anatomy of root in Ephedra. Internal structure of root of Ephedra plant. It shows the following parts. Number 1 is Epiblema. Number 2 is cortex. Number 3 is Endodermis. Number 4 is pericycle. Inner to pericycle is vascular tissue, and then inside the vascular tissue pith is present. Epiblema is the outermost layer or boundary of the root, and in this layer root hairs are present, and the function of these root hairs is to absorb water for the plant. Below the epiblema, cortex is present, and cortex is differentiated into two parts, outer cortex and the inner cortex. Outer region of the cortex, it is composed of thick walled cells, while the inner region is made up of thin walled cells, and in the cortical region mucilaginous canals are also present. Then the innermost layer of cortex, it consists of endodermis. Distinct endodermis is present, and then inner to endodermis pericycle is present, which is also single layered like endodermis, and pericycle is made up of thin walled cells. Then pericycle surrounds the vascular tissue, and vascular tissue is diarch of the root. It means that two xylem groups are present, two xylem tissue groups are present, and two phloem tissue groups are present. And then inner to vascular tissue pith is present, which is made up of parenchymatous tissue. Now we see the diagram of root. In this root, this is the outermost boundary or layer of the root, which is epidermis. Epidermis is known as the epiblema, and in this epiblema the root hairs are present, and the function of these root hairs is to absorb water from the soil for the plant. Outer wall layer of this epiblema, it also has cuticle layer. Then below the epiblema is the cortex, and this cortex is differentiated into two parts. Outer cortex, this is the region of outer cortex, which is made up of thick walled cells, and then next to outer cortex is on the inner side is the inner cortex, and this inner cortex is made up of thin walled parenchymatous cells, and in this part of the cortex intercellular spaces are also present, and in this cortical region mucilaginous canals are also present. Then the third part of the root is the endodermis. Endodermis is the innermost layer of the cortex, which consists of single layer of cells, and below the endodermis single layered pericycle is present, and this pericycle is composed of thin walled parenchyma cells, and this pericycle layer, it surrounds the vascular tissue, mean inside the pericycle vascular tissue is present, and vascular tissue is diarch. Diarch mean two xylem groups are present. This is one xylem group, this is another xylem group, this is one phloem group, and this is another phloem group. Xylem groups alternate with the phloem groups, phloem, xylem, phloem, and then xylem. And in this xylem tissue or xylem group, protoxylem is present towards the outer side, while metaxylem is present towards the pith region or towards the center of the root. And inside the vascular tissue, pith region is present, and this pith region is made up of thin-walled parenchymatous tissue. This is the internal structure of the root. And today, students, we have discussed the anatomy or internal structure of the root, in which we have discussed that root consists of the parts. Number one, outermost layer, epiblema. Then next to epiblema is cortical region, which is divided into two main parts, two main regions, outer cortex and the inner cortex. Then next to cortex is endodermis layer. Below the endodermis layer, pericycle is present. Endodermis and pericycle both are single layered structures, single layered cells. And then inner to pericycle, vascular tissue is present, which is diach. And then inside the vascular tissue is the pith region.